Welcome to Salon Talks. I'm Allie Joseph, and my guest today is the very inspiring and multi-hyphenate actor, activist, and entrepreneur Maggie Q, who stars in the new action thriller film, The Protégé. In it, she plays the world's most skilled contract killer who gets to avenge the death of her mentor, Sam Jackson, all while matching wits and emotions with the very equally dangerous Michael Keaton. The Protégé is out August 20th in theaters. Welcome, Maggie.
Hi, how are you?
I am very well, thank you. A little hot, schwitzing a little. You're freezing.
I'm freezing. So between the two of us, we're normal.
We could trade, right?
Exactly.
That would be really nice. So this is a really exciting film. Lots of fun. Lots of what fans have come to know from you, which is, of course, action, thrilling stunts, and of course, wit as well, and wits. And tell us a little bit about the plot and what people can expect and what drew you to the role of Anna.
Well, so, this film is really all about these relationships and kind of how they dovetail together. But Anna is a young girl who gets taken in by Sam Jackson's character, and he raises her like a daughter, like an adopted father. And in her upbringing, she becomes an adult and they become partners. And so this man to her is not just her mentor, her best friend, her father figure, but really the only person in her life. And through their contract, she ends up meeting a rival assassin in Michael Keaton, and really ends up being faced with a mirror that she never thought existed. And we go from there. Basically, the movie's got two pivotal relationships in it. And it's really about her past, how she confronts it, what her relationships are with these men, and where she goes from there. The script was awesome. It really was. And I was not interested in doing an action film. I explicitly said that to my agents. If anything comes in and it's action, I don't even want to look at it. I'm good. And because of the elements that were attached to the film, obviously my agent was like, no, this is something you have to take a look at because, but Michael, Martin, Richard Wank, who wrote it. So I said, all right, well, let me read it. And I was pleasantly surprised, just 5 pages in, that it didn't read at all like the action movies that are always sent over. This genre kind of, it's not the best written genre in that there's not a lot of character development. The character arcs are not, the relationships don't matter. I mean, it's entertainment at the end of the day, right? So you go and it's very shoot 'em up, and it's fun, and the action's big and all that. But the movie in and of itself doesn't matter to you, like not anywhere in here. So we set out to make something that was very different. And it wasn't until I got onto my first call with Martin about not only what he wanted to do, but more importantly, what he didn't want to do, the things that we saw in the genre that we just didn't like, these movies that are just one note, and you're not invested in the people. And so when I heard his take on it, I was so thrilled, and it wasn't just because he was someone I admired and was a big director, but he could be all those things and still have the wrong take on the movie, and it wouldn't have been a match. And so we ended up getting along really well and having really the same ideas. And obviously Michael was a huge draw as well, because again, not a genre Michael is present in, and not something he would ever take if he didn't think we could do something special with it.
And it is surprising in that way, as you say. I mean, it has all the action and the killing, if we're frank, and the heart racing, right? That my blood pressure was a little high. My watch was like, slow down.
Yeah.
You're getting worked up here. You're not even moving. That doesn't burn calories.
Yeah.
And yet, there's a warmth between you two that we really see, like almost like a father-daughter. But it has to be said, lots of martial arts in the film from you, and these terrifying stunts. And I've read that you are always very invested in doing your own stunts and have training in at least 3 martial arts disciplines. But I also read that 2.5 months before you had to be on set, you had a major back surgery. And I can't believe you went from that to launching yourself off stuff again so fast and doing almost all of your own stunts again. How did you manage that?
Managed is a very good word.
we didn't notice.
great, because there was I don't live with a ton of fear, which is great, because I think that there is a powerful sort of manifestation that can happen if you're always worried, right? And worrying is what it's making the thing happen that you don't want to happen, right? So I try to not spend time in that headspace. And so coming on, I sort of was like, well, if there's a boundary to be drawn, you have to draw it. But at the same time, I also know that there are lines that I jump over all the time. It's like, don't cross this line, Maggie. And then I jump over and go, no, I'm fine. But I think that it's funny because it's timing, because you have this thing that you have to be mindful of. And then you have this opportunity that does not come along very often. Right. And so you have to kind of weigh the two. I know the risk, but I also know what the reward can be. So sometimes you do have to take risks in this space. And it was absolutely incredibly risky to go into this when your doctor's telling you to rest for 5 months and it's been 2 months and you're like, well, I gotta jump in and start learning stuff. So everyone around me was terrified. Everyone around me, didn't want me to get hurt and wanted me to self-preserve. And I think that I did find the balance. I think that I worked hard, but I think at the same time, I was able to kind of internally go, Maggie, listen to yourself and listen to your body. And for what it's worth, the body let me do things. I don't know why, because I've been so used to it for 20 years. I know, yay body, who I've abused for 20 years in these movies. But at the same time, I mean, yay body is right. I mean, it really is a testament to like eating the right things and doing, things that you need to do for yourself.
100%. So going back those 20 years or perhaps even longer ago, what made you start training in martial arts? And did you have to recommit to your practice? Because it is a practice to make this film, aside the training you just described, or are you one of those perfect people who is always consistent, aside of back surgery, right? There you get a part,
right,
and doesn't eat any cookies or whatever.
I do. I think that I'm very concentrated on what's right in front of me, right? So I'm blessed to have a skill set, obviously a physicality where my muscles have memories and I can kind of move in a certain way, which is great. But from when I started like really heavy action on a weekly basis in Nikita for 4 years, it's been many years since then. So it's not like, I've been keeping that level up. I keep a level of physicality for sure, just because I like to be healthy and strong. But the training for these kinds of things is very specific. And so I ended up, kind of like in the beginning, it wasn't even, I had no idea. I actually asked a director once in Hong Kong. I said, why do people look for me to do action? Like, I don't even understand this because I'm not a trained martial artist. I've never and I said, where are they getting this from? And he said, Maggie, there are a ton of trained martial artists in the world, as you know. And if all it took was that you were a good fighter, you could walk into like any dojo in the world and pull someone and they'd be a movie star. And that's not at all what it is. There is an internal strength that needs to be recognized by filmmakers in you, which is why they're choosing you, and the rest can be learned. And that's really what it was, because I didn't come in going like, I was a runner and a swimmer. Like I couldn't even touch my toes when I started in movies. I was not flexible. I didn't have any skills. Everything I had to learn from nothing. And as an adult, because when you're a kid, you learn stuff. It's like very easy, languages, physicality, all that sort of stuff. Once you're an adult, it's sort of like, how do I stretch my hamstrings to the point where I can actually reach my toes? And so that's where I started from. And so it was incredibly tough to do that. But knowing that there was something that they saw in me, strength internally that I could build on externally, kind of gave me a better understanding of why it was me.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've always been Gumby, damn it. I'm Gumby, damn it. But I have 2 children who can barely touch their toes, so they can thank their dad for that. But I see as an athlete, how hard it is you can really snap something if you're not flexible. So the discipline that it takes for you to transition like that is amazing. Speaking of transitions, you and I share a history of modeling, a love of the Hawaiian ecosystem, and also awesome. I think a childhood desire to be a veterinarian.
Amazing.
And I've let most of that go except for loving Hawaii. But I'm wondering what the fashion industry taught you, because I know it's a rough business in a lot of ways, and how you applied those things to your transition years ago to acting.
You know, I will say very specifically that starting that career in Tokyo taught me about timing. And I know that may sound like really small and really nothing, but the Japanese are fanatical about time management. And if you are 30 seconds late to something, they won't see you. Certainly not at that time. And you're taking trains and this and that and looking at maps to get places. And invariably there are going to be hiccups and this and that. And there was no excuse for that. And so I remember that being such a harsh reality, you know, coming from, I'd never, you know, I mean, I've been working since I've had a job since I was 10. So I've definitely worked, but not in this field. And it's obviously, you know, because I was in that marketplace, I thought that was cool. I thought it was cool that I could get something out of an industry that's so toxic and gross, and one that I would never recommend anybody go into. You know, I think you got to kind of pull what it is that will make you better and stronger, and leave the rest behind, because the rest of it was, you know, I remember the agency that I was with, they had a whiteboard on the wall and with all our names on it, and they weighed you every Friday, and they put your weight on the wall, but they kept all the previous weights for all the previous weeks on the wall. They kept it there so that people could see if you were yo-yoing, going up and down. And so it was like a wall of shame, right? Like if you gained a pound, everyone knew it and could see it. And it was literally, you walked in the door, it was right there after you walked in the door, so that, like, you know, it was on display for everyone. And it was intended to shame you into either never eating, having an eating disorder, or feeling really bad about yourself. And it's disgusting. It's really gross. And I don't think that, I'm sure there are experiences in it that are very positive. One of my best friends growing up in Hawaii is a modeling agent now, and he's owns his own agency, and he's a very healthy, honest guy. You know, they're a gay couple who really cares about his girls, and he's very straight with them. He keeps them healthy. He keeps them sane. That did not exist when I was modeling. No. Awful people. Awful.
Yeah.
And you know,
yeah,
because you came
we
from
could talk shop. I had a French agent who used to take the girls to dinner, and then they would watch what you ordered. And if you didn't order the plain salmon and the lettuce, they'd go. Right. There was not even it was.
Oh, no, you can't.
No.
Yeah.
And I was always
Eating
like
was
a big girl. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Definitely discouraged.
Stop
yeah.
it.
Well, athletic nowadays.
Well, you know, what was really funny was that I was their model. I was their model because I was always so slim. Mm-hmm. Two reasons. One, I was an athlete. And the second reason was I couldn't afford food. And so
I remember that. Yeah.
Right. So I was so poor that I actually couldn't afford food. And I would save up to the end of the week to buy fruit, because I loved fruit. I'm from Hawaii. It's like a part of and if I could afford fruit at the end of the week, you know, if I could like skip train rides and skip certain meals and afford like 4 apples at the end of that week, I was like winning. But I stayed really slim because I really couldn't have 3 meals a day because I couldn't afford them. And they were like, look at Maggie, she's so awesome because she's always so skinny. And I'm like, don't say that to people when I can't afford food.
Right. Exactly. I know. Totally. My experience is like stone soup, you know, like what can we eat today? Does it have food in it? Right. Anyway, well, thank you for that. That resonates a lot, and for sure. So you've been in the film industry, more importantly, for a long time now, and you've become a go-to action star on multiple continents. And this means that you've lived through lots of eras and changes in the industry, and especially the Me Too movement. So I'm curious what your perspective on the equity and boundary shifts in Hollywood over the past few years have been, if you've seen any, and I hope that you've seen some in the positive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, pretty remarkable, actually. I mean, the fact that there are certain people who can't get away with things now is just, I mean, I would have never, I mean, I remember the days when, you know, being in those dinners where, you know, the big guy walked into the room and everybody had to kiss his ass in a way that was just really demeaning and awful. And those people are now sitting in jail. And it's really kind of awesome because the abuse was just so rampant and blatant, and no one was hiding anything. You know, there are more severe things that were being hidden, obviously, but overtly, I'm not, you know, these are not these are not nice people. It's not like anybody was like, oh, what a great guy. What a shock that, these abuses were happening that we didn't know about because, but really in those moments and in that time of like these powerhouses that we gave so much power to, individual power to, there was really not much anyone could do. And it wasn't until people started speaking up in numbers that it became something that was a threat to these people, right? Because as individuals, you don't really get that done because, they can discredit you or not listen to you or disregard you or whatever it is they want to do. But the more and more and more people, have confidence and courage to come forward, it becomes like really, truly undeniable. And then what are you going to do, right? But I just think accountability is awesome. It's amazing. It needs to happen. There are varying degrees of things that were happening. And although I truly believe in people being held accountable in whatever way they need to for whatever they've done, I'm also a very big believer in forgiveness and redemption. And I don't think that everything has to be punitive. I think that we have to move into the transformative, because at the end of the day, unless you've like literally committed a crime you have to go to jail for, there are people who need to make amends, and we need to allow people to do that because people do make mistakes. And so I think there's two sides of what's going on. And I think that whatever it is that you would want for yourself, you should want for other people as well. And I know that I make mistakes and I want to be forgiven for them. And there are people where things are unforgivable, and there are people where it's like, you know what? Show us you're different and, we'll welcome you back, kind of thing. And so I believe in both. I really do. I think it depends on the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And from what I hear, progress, but also some, the more things change, the more they stay the same, unfortunately, in some cases too.
It's really true. It's really true. But I think we have to start somewhere. And I think we have.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're very vocal about, I don't know how much time we have, a couple more questions, but I don't want to keep you. I know you probably had a long day, even though it's earlier there, but you've been really vocal about pay equity and especially, or the lack thereof. And have there been improvements on that front for women actors in the recent past, and especially in the action genre that's front and center issue?
You know what, funnily enough, I have colleagues in the industry who have been much more vocal than I have about that specifically. Where I am vocal about pay equity is for migrant workers. And that's something I've been working on a lot. I have a bill right now in the California state legislature for garment workers in California. And so for me, okay, yes, those things need to happen. And yes, I'm a big believer and supporter of all those things. And I'll be vocal about it. I'll fight for it. At least we have a voice. So for me, it's sort of like my focus has always been on the women who have none, who no one is paying attention to, who can scream into the wind all day long and no one's going to hear them. So COVID has truly affected and devastated the lives of many, many immigrant women in California. 40,000 workers we have in downtown LA, and they are being screwed in the worst way. And the trickle down has affected them and no one else, of course, because they're the poorest people. So for me, I think that whatever end you fight on, do it. I just want to lend my voice to people who don't have one.
We really do have an obligation to speak up for the voiceless. It's, I have that in my Native American history, and perhaps in some of your heritage, and in a lot of cultures, there's this ethos of the seventh, generation, this idea that you should leave things better than you have found it for 7 generations living after you. So,
oh, that's cool.
And like you, I mean, I try to live that way every day in small ways. And that gets another question is, fans who love you know that activism is really important to you. So how do you define activism to that point in your own day-to-day life?
I think there are many forms now, obviously. I think some of my heroes in the human rights world have been people who have been pounding the pavement for many, many years before activism or topics as they were these days are popular. There are things that are popular. People can voice them and jump on the bandwagon because everyone's supporting it. So it's totally fine. But the people who have been my mentors and the people that I've learned from in my years of activism have been the people who have been fighting way before anything was popular, way before people cared about anything that they were talking about. And so that's kind of where I get the root of what I do. And so for me, it's less armchair and it's more about where can I affect, where the residual effect for the community and for the people at large, or animals or the environment, whatever it is going to be either regulated or put into law so that on a much bigger scale, we are making that type of difference. And that's why I work so, I'm on the board of a organization called Social Compassion and Legislation. We did so much work up in Sacramento, and, you know, some of the laws that we've gotten passed, you know, this is not sexy stuff, right? When I'm in Sacramento and I'm lobbying politicians, that's not what I want to do every day, but it's something that I'm good at. And it's something that I know I can do because I'm educated and I know how to speak and I know how to get things done. And so I'm very behind the scenes when it comes to how I want to affect change. I protest, I do all kinds of things like that. But what I found is most effective is if we can, at the core, where our lawmakers live, we need to be affecting them, because the truth is, when I'm driving down Melrose and I see a lineup for lip gloss around the corner and I'm at the state capitol and I don't see that, it's devastating to me. It really is, because we have so much power in this experiment democracy that we're living, and we need to exercise that. And if we're not doing that, we are doing a disservice to this life that we've been giving. And I do believe that we have so much power to affect change. And that is why in my activism, I hit it from that angle, because it may not be out front, it may not be sexy, but it's effective.
Yeah, I mean, that, you know, the disparity is so obvious nowadays, right, between materialism and what really
Sure.
needs to happen to affect positive change.
Sure.
We have to wrap up. I want to know what's next for you real quick.
I have a new show that I start next month on Fox that we've been picked up. We're mid-season. We come out in January, and it's a comedy. It's a half-hour comedy with Jennifer Goodwin and Eliza Coupe, and we're playing 3 women in our 40s who are not quite sure they made the right life choices. So turning their lives around in their 40s. And it's hysterical. We have such a great creator, great writers, and I'm so excited to dig in, because it's just, I'm so looking forward to having fun at work in that way.
Yeah, it's like, you know, for a lot of people, we wonder that every day, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Maybe not you, but
I think that's why it tested, the pilot tested so well, and probably why we got picked up, is people were like, wait a minute.
Exactly. Well, it'd be nice for you to also get routinized again, right? Like the same show, set, reporting.
Totally.
Thanks so much for your time. We have to
Thank
wrap
you.
up, but this, of course, has been Maggie Q, and her new film, The Protégé, is out August 20th in theaters. Lots of action, lots of adventure, and some heart as well. So go ahead and check it out. Thanks again, Maggie, for your time.
Thank you so much.